And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live on YouTube on the Comedy Schools channel. And I believe that we're live on the Comedy Schools Radio Network.com. I think we're live there. In just a few seconds, we will also be live. Hold on, it puts a button on top of my button. Live on Facebook Live. And now we are. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tony Vicich, and your name is whatever you want it to be. This is the show that we like to call Living on a Thin Line. We like to call it that because that's its name. And we almost every, no, as a matter of fact, every, except for one day at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time with your daily diversion from all the craziness, anxiety, and hoopla going on in the world today. And my word, isn't there a bunch of it? My heart goes out to the people of Minnesota, the people of Minneapolis, to the gentleman who was murdered by a police officer in Minneapolis. It was heartbreaking. It's truly heartbreaking to see that video, and truly heartbreaking to see what's happened to that city. At one time, that was a regular stop for me. I spent many a week in Minneapolis and have great fond memories of that city. And beyond that, I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. I just know that what happened to that man should happen to no one ever. No one ever. What's gotten lost, I think, and I don't want to get all serious and stuff right now because that's not what the show's about. But I was joking with a friend of mine who was a police officer one time, and he asked me, he said, well, do you respect the police? And I said, of course I do. I respect all of my employees. So I think what's gotten lost somewhere along the line over the number of years is that not only do the politicians work for us, okay, but the military works for us and the police work for us. This is a civilian-controlled country, ladies and gentlemen, and that those who make a living off of our tax dollars are our employees. They work for us. I respect all my employees, and I certainly expect respect from them as well. Clearly, what we saw on that videotape in Minneapolis was someone showing no respect for someone else's life. And with all that we got going on in the world today, to see that was just simply devastating. And then to see that beautiful city torn asunder in the way it is, made for a little rough night for me. But one of the reasons I do this show, ladies and gentlemen, is because we do have to contend with these things. We have to contend with all the things going on in the world, with a epidemic, pandemic, financial turbulence, unrest in the streets, and then we still, ladies and gentlemen, have to persevere. We not only have to survive, we have to thrive. And what that means is that every once in a while we got to take a little break from it all. Anybody involved in any sort of creative endeavor, a writer in particular, knows that every once in a while you got to get up from the table. You have to tell yourself you're going to sit there at the desk in front of that computer, in front of that typewriter for X amount of hours. But every once in a while you got to get up and walk away from it. Every once in a while you got to get relax. You got to think about something else. You got to do something else so that when you return to your problem, you can solve your problem. So that's kind of what this show is dedicated to. This show is built around three things, ladies and gentlemen. 1, 2, 3, and that's why we are actually on 3 platforms. We are on ComedySchoolsRadioNetwork.com. For those of you who just want to listen, I mean, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to look at a 64-year-old man wearing a dirty blue Los Angeles Clippers hat. But if you've decided that that's not your cup of tea, then you can listen on ComedySchoolsRadioNetwork.com. That's kind of where the show was born anyway. It was born out of a Friday morning podcast we used to do. And we switched to an everyday podcast with the advent of the Corona quarantine. But if you want to watch, you got 2 ways to watch. And one is on YouTube on the Comedy Schools channel. And that's a pretty nice shot when I look at it. I think it's a pretty cool looking shot. Or if you want to look on Facebook Live, we are here as well. It's built around, so we're on 3 platforms. Show's built around 3 things. Interaction with you. You can make comments or ask questions here on Facebook Live or on the other two platforms, and we will comment back or answer them to the best of our ability, and we love doing that. It's built around that. It's also built around me showing some silly trinket or novelty item that I have stashed here in the home office of comedyschools.com in Maricopa, Arizona, or some memento I have or some autograph that I have that reminds me of a better time and a better place. All right. Glenn Roman said, are the Clippers still a team? The Clippers are a very good team right now, Glenn. That joke is about as old as your set. So the Clippers have been contenders now for many, many years. Many, many years. Better than any basketball team in Denver right now, or in Colorado, I'd like to point out now, Mr. Glenn Roman. So, and right now, I don't know if any team is a team at all. But I was talking with a young man today about basketball, and he's a big basketball fan and a big LeBron fan. And LeBron is certainly a fantastic player and a fantastic human being from everything that we see. And we were talking about how we both hope we'll be able to watch basketball this season. We both truly hope that. And that I won't mind if I'm watching an NBA game and there's no attendees in the stands. And I love going to basketball games. Anybody who knows me goes, I go to anywhere between 4 and 14 a year, primarily at Staples Center in Los Angeles or here at US Airways in Phoenix. I just love that game. You know, it's funny. Right as I start doing the podcast, there's some sort of, what's that? There's some sort of crazy construction or something going on outside? No? Oh, yeah. You know how lazy people have gotten during quarantine? They used to pick up the trash here on my street Wednesdays at 7 a.m. They now pick it up Fridays at 2. Everybody's gotten lazy. Anyway, we were talking about how we wouldn't mind that, even though I love going to see games. The majority of the games I've ever watched in my entire life have been on television, and if the NBA can work out a way for their players to be able to play safely, man, I will enjoy that. One of the reasons we do this podcast is because so many of the entertainment distractions that we've had in life are not with us right now. There is Trey Goodman. Oh, Trey Goodman, our good friend and talented director, producer, and writer, Trey Goodman, says the NBA is scheduled to restart July 31st. Darn, man. You know what? As long as you're able to do it safely, I think that's fantastic. Do we know anything about if they'll be playing with fans in the stands or not, Trey? They're going to, things are starting to open up, and I certainly hope that works out for the best. Speaking of which, let me make a little shift here now. On June 28th, about 1 month before the NBA officially restarts on July 31st, we will be doing a show at our good friend Tom Sims Comedy Club, Stir Crazy in Glendale at the Westgate Shopping Plaza, Stir Crazy Comedy Club. It's Tony Vicich and friends. It will be 7:30, June 28th. Tickets are already on sale at stircrazy.com. Tickets are $15. There'll be a limit on the number of patrons. I think it's either 40 or 45. So buy your tickets now. I will put on a wingding of a show for you. Also, this Sunday night, let me tell you what I got this Sunday night. You're gonna love this. One of the chestnuts we've been able to pull out of this horrific fire, to use a metaphor, has been that we have started doing live shows on Zoom, meaning we could take what previously had only been available to people locally at a local club, at a local theater, and give it to the world. And this Sunday night, I got a wingding for you. I got a hootenanny for you, my friends, this Sunday night. I do. Oh, Lord, it's going to be so good. Christopher Royer is going to be in the Zoom room. This Sunday night, Tony Vicich presents Sunday Night's Funnier with headliner Christopher Royer. Tickets are only $10. Okay, portions of the proceeds go to help local food banks. And you're going to see a great stand-up comedy show along with comics David John and John Abraham. But Christopher Royer is someone who I always thought should be able to break nationally. But he's remained in Phoenix for a lot of good reasons. And now, because of the magic of Zoom, we're able to show him to the world. So go to comedyschools.com, scroll to get tickets, click it, buy a $10 ticket. If you're quarantined with 20 people, all 20 you can watch for $10. You're by yourself, watch it for $10. Chris can put on a great show for you, great stand-up comedy show, Sunday night, 7 p.m., comedyschools.com for tickets. Oris K-Man, a friend of mine who has his own podcast. Okay, and I believe the podcast is called Old Guy Talks. I did an interview with him a couple days ago, and it's now up. And Old Guys Talk to Me. Old Guys Talk to Me. I did. He was gracious enough to have me on his podcast, and we did a 45-minute interview. 45 minutes where we talked about a lot of great things, comedy. And you're going to be able to find that podcast at Old Guys Talk to Me. Old Guys Talk to Me. And if you look here, Oris, if you want to tag me on my page with that, if you want to put it on my page, do that, because this will get lost once the show is over. Okay. If you want to put the link there and anybody wants to go ahead and listen, Oris is a great interviewer. I had a lot of fun doing the show. I don't know if I had any insights about comedy, but man, did I go on and on about it for 45 minutes. So please check that out. Also, I had a great conversation today with our old friend here in Greater Phoenix, Jeff Rawls. For many years ran Jester's Comedy, one of the premier improv groups, not only in this city, but in this state and in the Southwest. He's starting a new website called Fun-E Networks, F-U-N-E networks.com, that is dedicated to all things comedy, stand-up, sketch, and improv. Please check out that website. It's a subscription-based website. There is a preview. There is a trial. But anything Jeff Rawls does is quality. And if you're looking for ways to be entertained, he's got it for you. Okay? All right. So that was all the promos. That was all the commercials. So what have I got here to show you silly and stupid? When we started doing this podcast, we started out by showing you bobbleheads. Excuse me, bobbleheads. Now, I claim that I don't collect bobbleheads. But my grandson, after we had both been socially distanced for enough time that it would be okay, came over and visited. And he looked and he goes, no, I think you collect bobbleheads. And he's 8, and 8-year-olds are honest. And since then, I've been collecting more and more. So that was the first knick-knack or trinket or goofy thing we were showing people on the podcast, because bobbleheads are funny. And I got another one. Here it is. There it is. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. There you go. There you go. Look at that. I like them because when you hit them, their little heads bounce. Some heads have better bounce than others. I prefer the ones with good head bounce. These, like I hit it, it barely bounces, but so it's not really a bobblehead. It's not even a wobblehead. I don't know what it is, but it is. And this is Paul Solo from the Arizona Diamondbacks. This was on D-backs Star Wars Day. So this was a player for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Might still be a player for the Arizona Diamondbacks, for all I know. Okay. Dressed up as Hans Solo. Hans Solo for Arizona D-backs Diamond Day. It's part of my now ever-growing bobblehead collection. Everybody should own at least one bobblehead. And have it a part of your house where you can walk by and just kind of flick the head and watch it bobble. It'll make you feel good. I now have maybe 15 or 20 bobbleheads. And by the way, all of you out there in living on a thin line land, if you happen to run across a Mo from the Three, I need it. I need it. I gotta have it. Okay? I've got Larry and I've got Curly. Don't send me no Shemps. Don't send me no Joe Dirt. But if you run across a Mo bobblehead and you want to send it to me, you're doing me solid, brother. Do me solid if you do that. Make me feel good. So here's your bobblehead of the day. Paul Solo from the Arizona Diamondbacks, dressed as Solo. Because I think, what was his real name? Shirley, you looked it up yesterday.
I don't remember.
She doesn't remember.
Something.
Okay. All right. All right, fine. So anyway, that's your bobblehead for the day, okay? Let's see. What do we got here? Something. He said he's a Pee Wee Herman lookalike. Could be a Pee Wee Herman lookalike. I don't know. Hello, Shelly Austin. Hello, Colleen Pirtle. Let's see if I got any comments here that I missed. Trey Goodman says Jeff is awesome and funny. Jeff Rawls. Yes, he is. We have a lot of funny people on here today.
Solo Tear-Off.
What is it again?
Solo Tear-Off.
Solo Tear-Off?
Tear-Off.
Tear-Off. Solo Tear-Off. Paul Solo Tear-Off. So he went out then as Paul Solo, Han Solo, on D-back Star Wars Day, and it was brought to you by a cable company here in town. But it's a pretty cool bobblehead because it's a ball player dressed like a Star Wars character. Okay. No, you know what? I scrolled back far enough to see Glenn Broman's see his rude comment about the LA Clippers, and that hurts me. Glenn, you hurt me. Angela Fox says, I have a bobblehead collection too. No more, though. So, Angela, I don't know if that means that you had a bobblehead collection, you got rid of it, or if you have one and you're not getting any more, because they do take up space. You know, you get the boxes, you keep in boxes, but what's the point then? People are collective, can be worth money. I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, this one cost me less than $3. Cost me less than $3. So whoever got this the night they got it at an Arizona Diamondbacks game, and that is the cool thing about it. Somebody was attending a ball game, probably with their kids, and it was bobblehead night, and they got it for their kids. Maybe the kid grew up and said, I don't want it anymore, and it ended up getting sold to a secondhand store, and now it's in my possession, but it did not accrue in massive value. These things have value emotionally. They have values for the memories. Years from now, I'll look back on doing this podcast and remember how I started it. I'll look back on this podcast and remember how I started it and remember what it meant to me and what it meant to me that you guys all tuned in and watched. And I'll think of it when I'm digging through somewhere and I find a bobblehead in some garage, in the garage now, buried under a bunch of stuff. Go, oh, wow, that meant something at the time. Oh, Angela Fox says, no, Mo. No, go, you are no Mo, though. No Mo, though. I get it. I have a bobblehead collection, too. No Mo, though. Angela Fox says, no Mo. I'm going to do a public service announcement real quick. This is important for all you guys to know. And then I'm going to get to the music that I'm going to recommend today. The latest tactic politically on social media, you know, the things are going a little crazy on social media right now because some people on social media are upset because the social media sites will then say this tweet glorifies violence, or this one is factually challenged, and there's a big stink about it. But the latest thing from a lot of people now, conservatives and right-wing people, are to report your posts, the slightest thing. So be wary of that. It's one of the reasons why for years I never deleted anyone. And wide points of view. I have good friends that are on here right now that have very divergent political points of view for me, but they're my friends. But there are people now that are making it a cottage industry to go through your site and find something and then report it in the hopes to get you kicked off social media or suspended. So be aware of that. That is my we would call it my public service announcement for the day. Hello, Abhinav. Took a soda break. So please be careful of that. Abhinav, have you had any post reported? Yes, I have. I had a post reported. Okay. I made a snide comment about some guy who was attacking everybody on a particular thread. And I made a snide comment about his appearance, and it got reported, and it stuck, even though I appealed it. So, and then on the same thread, I saw that this individual had actually done the same thing with several people. And today on one of my threads, someone said that a cartoon they'd put up had been reported. Obviously, it was decided that it didn't go against community standards because it stayed up. But you want to keep one eye open now, ladies and gentlemen. We know that it's a free exchange of ideas, and we know that hate speech is verboten. We know that, but there's a cottage industry right now of people reporting people's posts in the hopes to get them kicked off social media. So be aware. Kevin Brown said, you already know, LOL. That's what I already told you guys. All right, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I want to get to the music before we wrap up today. And I got two doozies to recommend to you right here. One, a man who's been lost in as the years have gone by, who was extremely popular at one time. Some questioned the level of his talent. Some said that he piggybacked on a lot of things. But I loved the guy when I was a kid. I loved his songs. Later on did I find out many of his songs had been written by somebody else. But here he is, ladies and gentlemen. And it's not a great album cover. But I want to talk about this guy. And this guy is Johnny Rivers. This is Johnny Rivers. Now, Johnny Rivers, for many years before the rock era in the early and mid-'60s, on the Sunset Strip was the house band, led the house band at the Whiskey A Go Go. If you really think about it, Whiskey A Go Go is not really a hippie name. If you know anything about those subcultures, it was more of a swinging 60s kind of name. The Whiskey A Go Go, the legendary Whiskey A Go Go in the Sunset Strip. For years, Johnny Rivers, his band was a house band there. And he had a song that came out in like 1965. It was a massive hit. That was the theme song to a television show that I loved when I was a kid called Secret Agent Man. And his song, Secret Agent Man, they're giving you a number and taking away your name, was just the coolest song ever. He also did a great version of Memphis by Chuck Berry, Brown-Eyed Handsome Man by Chuck Berry. He did Silver Threads and Golden Needles before Linda Ronstadt, I believe. He did a version of a Whole Lot of Shake On in the Midnight Hour. His other big hit, he had a big hit with Memphis, Baby, I Need Your Lovin', which was a Holland Dozier Holland song, and those were the guys that wrote the first 10 hits for the Supremes. But Johnny Rivers had a huge hit with it, and that's on here. He also, on this album, does a version of Whiter Shade of Pale, the Procol Harum song. Johnny Rivers had a string of big hits on the radio, and then by the late 60s, early 70s, he was beginning to fade, was considered a relic. I will tell you, in the early 80s, he played a place called Club Lingerie down in a not hip part end of the strip, all the way down in Hollywood, a place where Jack Mack and the Heart Attack was the house band. And in a drunken, coked out stupor, my brother and I went to see him there, and it was a great night, because even though it was well past his time, and he had some health problems, I also think he got the hell beat out of him one time by mobsters, although I'm not sure about that. He kind of disappeared. Thank you. Cricket Gill says, great class yesterday. By the way, it's not too late. If you guys ever thought about doing stand-up comedy, we got a great stand-up comedy workshop going for you guys. This coming Thursday, a week from yesterday, it's class 2 of the beginning workshop, but I'm still willing to allow people to join and attend. If you ever thought about doing stand-up comedy and you'd like to learn in a real positive environment, go to comedyschools.com. But check out Johnny Rivers. Check out Maybelline. And what was the other song I liked by him? Help me information. My number, please. Memphis. It is Memphis, Tennessee. Okay, so check that out. But you know what? Put in YouTube Secret Agent Man, and you'll hear pre-rock, pre-psychedelic rock and roll that existed in that space between when the Beatles started and the late 60s rock movement, which is now known as classic rock. There was that space inhabited by Johnny Rivers, inhabited by the Wee Five, inhabited by the Beau Brummels. Check it out. Fascinating music. You'll enjoy him a lot. So, I would be wrong, and it kind of ties into what's going on in the world today, if I did not recommend this man. Because without this man, none of these other people, I point over here because there's like a couple hundred albums right over here. None of the, you know what? You can kind of see it on YouTube, if you're on YouTube. All right? None of these other people would exist. None of these albums would get made without this man right here. Who are we talking about? Some of you already know just by looking. This is Charles Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry, St. Louis's own Chuck Berry. And this is the album. The name of this album is Johnny Be Good. Johnny Be Good. And on this album, this was an original album, but this was not an original issue. This was originally issued on Mercury Records. That was on Pickwick, which kind of brought out Mercury, I think. Here's what's on this album. What's on this album is the birth of rock and roll. On this album are the songs that later on launched 10,000 other songs. Johnny Be Good, Memphis, Tennessee, Roll Over Beethoven, Sweet Little 16, School Days, Side B, Maybelline, Reelin' and Rockin', Rock and Roll Music, and Back in the USA. I'm so glad I'm living in the USA. So right here, you have the songs that launched 100,000 songs. Chuck Berry, the original rock and roller. Some people say that Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock was the very first rock and roll song. but real rock and roll was created by Chuck Berry. Some, you could argue Little Richard, but in a combination. But without Chuck, the guitar craze that took over pop music for decades would have never existed. So if you don't know Chuck Berry, or you've never sit down and listen to a group of Chuck Berry songs, YouTube, Johnny B. Good, Memphis, Roll Over Beethoven, there's not a song here I can't recommend. Sweet Little 16, School Days, Love in the Morning and Off to School. Maybelline, oh Maybelline. Reelin' and Rockin', reelin' and rockin', roll until the break of dawn. Rock and roll music and Back in the USA. Man, any of those songs, and just start listening to and watching Chuck Berry. Watch that incredible duck walk that he used to do when he played. The guy was a showman. The guy was a rocker. He fell on hard times later on in life. Or let me say that he got into a lot of trouble later on. Late in life, he didn't. As I understand it from my friends in St. Louis, that towards the end of his life, when he was in his 80s, he'd wander down to bars down in the Soulard district of St. Louis. Great district, by the way. And sit in with bands and stuff. He was known at one point in the 70s. He played a lot of colleges, and he would get off the plane just with his guitar. They'd call him up and go, okay, what do you want? And he goes, well, I want this much money. And they go, well, you want to come in a day before? He goes, and you're going to have to get me a band. And they go, want to come in and rehearse? And he go, rehearse? He goes, you find a band. He goes, they know. We go, well, they might not know your songs. He goes, they know Chuck Berry songs. That's how they learned how to playing Chuck Berry songs. And his deal was, when he got off the plane, and I think the number was 10,000, they had to be waiting for them who hired him with a suitcase with $10,000 in it. And if when he got off that plane, if you didn't have that suitcase, he got back on the plane. He'd fly in, him and his guitar, hour before the gig, go, plug in, look around the band, go, all right, Sweet Little 16, let's go. Wheel to the audience and play, and expect the band to keep up with him. Chuck Berry went through a lot of stuff in his life, and one of the things he went through was he was thrown in jail. At the height of his popularity, he was thrown in jail. And he was thrown in on a trumped-up charge. There was an act called the Mann Act that said it was against the law to take a woman across state line for immoral purposes. And it supposedly he had a woman with him, and they went from one state to another state and went to a hotel and made love, and he was thrown in jail for that. It was the government, it was the culture, it was society going, we're not going to have some black guy on our television, on our radio, dancing around all crazy and singing about rock and roll and disrupting our youth. And they threw him in jail. I don't know what that feels like to know that you've been unjustly put in prison. But we did it to one of the greatest icons of pop music. They wanted to destroy rock and roll back in those days. That's why they destroyed Jerry Lee Lewis. That's kind of why they. The story was that Little Richard was blackmailed because of his sexuality, shoving Elvis into the army inexplicably. All those things to try to destroy that, but you cannot destroy the energy and optimism of America, and the sound of America is our music. And we keep reinventing our music going all the way back as far as Scott Joplin and ragtime, which was the rock and roll of its day, to Benny Goodman and Duke Ellington and all those guys that created swing music in the 40s, all the way up to the jazz giants like Miles Davis and John Coltrane, right into the rock and roll era with Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard and Elvis, into the rock era where the English had to come back and go, you forgot all these songs. These are songs that were made in America that you forgot to listen to. And feed us back our music all the way up through the outlaw country music of Willie and Waylon, all the way into the rap music, all the way into what Dr. Dre and Tupac does. And we just keep doing it. We just keep doing it. And we do it with comedy too. America's greatest export is our pop culture, is our fun. That's what America is about, is fun. And sometimes you got to take a little break from fun and get a little safe. And that's what we're doing right now. Okay? But there's still ways to have parties. All right? And one of the ways I have a little party every day is by doing this show and just let myself wax poetic and go on and on and on. Hope I didn't bore you. Another way that I have fun is with the show I got coming up this Sunday. Tony Vicich presents Sunday Nights Funnier. Christopher Royer, only $10. Tickets available at comedyschools.com. You'll love Chris Royer. You'll be glad you caught the show. please buy a ticket, support local food banks, support these local comics. That's it for the day. I got to go. I will be back tomorrow with our special edition, our Saturday night 7 p.m. show. So I expect to see all you back tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. I got more bobbleheads. I got more albums. I got more stuff I love talking to you about. Take care. Bye-bye.